Good morning and welcome to Political Brew. I'm News Center Maine's Don Kerrigan, joined by our analyst, Republican Phil Harriman, Democrat Betsy Sweet. Thank you both for being with us.
Good morning.
Winter moves on, as does activity in the state capitol. Governor Janet Mills made her State of the Budget address to the legislature and the people of Maine this week. Before we get to specifics, the budget was already out, had been out for close to a month. So Phil, I'll start with you. Anything that surprised you or really stuck out from that speech?
Well, I think it was more about reinforcing for the legislature what's behind her budget and her motivation to emphasize where she wanted to spend money. But the fact remains, this budget is $1 billion more than the last one. That's a tremendous amount of money that's going to be put into the system. New services and bureaucracies are going to be reinforced to provide those services, and at some point the money's going to start to dry up and we're going to have some struggles to maintain services.
We'll get to an aspect of that in a moment. Betsy, your thoughts overall?
Well, I thought you did a good job of explaining what's happening with the economy. We keep waiting for the shoe to drop, and it hasn't, and it's not forecasted to for a while. I thought she did a good job of explaining where it needed to go, the opioid crisis, some of the intractable problems that we still have. To me, I think what was missing for me is we have money, we have a majority in all those. I would have liked to have seen some more creative, innovative ways to look at some of these intractable problems, which we didn't see. I think it was a steady the ship, keep it, and I think in terms
Which had been what she basically predicted even before the budget came out,
absolutely.
Right? Even though it's a lot more money.
No, and that's how she defines her job here, and that's good. I mean, that's something that needs to happen.
So a couple interesting pieces of that. She spoke about, it would end up being a budget item, this idea of housing first for, that's primarily talked about in terms of homeless. She talked about that, said if the legislature will pass a housing first bill, she'll sign it. There is one of those out there. We don't know what it's going to be or how much it would cost, which of course is an interesting question. And then she also did, as you mentioned, talked about expanding opioid treatment, and also talked about speeding up her timeline for Maine to be 100% renewable electricity. So are those things, some of that was like a shot to the legislature, be ready for this?
Yeah, and I think really important. I mean, the housing crisis is very real for every level of our society, of Maine, right? For people who are homeless up to people who are just trying to find a house to buy or a place to rent that's affordable. So I think that taking on the housing crisis, taking on the opioid crisis, again, how we do that, I think is going to be a lot more conversation about that. But I think, she just said, here we have these intractable problems, and I think it's some way a reality check based on we can't spend another $1 billion. Well, where would you cut, and what of these problems would you not solve?
Yeah, that's our next comment. Phil.
Well, I think, we've had a Maine State Housing Authority in place for almost 50 years, and that's been their mission, to create housing for Mainers, and we're still talking about it 50 years later. There's got to be some fundamental change in the ordinances and building methods and other things that truly makes it affordable. And the other part of your question, I thought, regarding the opioid addiction is, I didn't hear anything about enforcement of existing laws. We've got this stuff coming over the border and it's making its way to Maine and it's killing people.
Well, there's a lot in the budget for enforcement. There's $80 million more for state police. She didn't mention it, but we're not going to arrest our way out of this problem. We have got to look at where this starts, and it starts with good mental health. It starts with prevention. It's not going to start or end with cops.
And speaking of budget, the Republicans in general and specifically in their response to the State of the Budget speech made it clear their big push is going to be for tax reduction. They said we should reduce income taxes by $1 billion. Phil, do you agree with that? Do you agree with that number?
Well, there should be some tax relief. As she touted in her budget address, the rainy day fund is full. We've got $1 billion more revenue than projected. If there's ever a time to have some tax rate reduction, not some rebate that's a one-time event, but a rate reduction, it's now, particularly for middle and low income people.
Do you think there'd be a lot of public support for that versus some of the spending proposed?
I do think there would be broad public support, but as we both know, it's not going to happen because Republicans don't have the votes.
Well, but I think it's so important, in terms of rainy day fund, in terms of tax cuts, we hear, oh yeah, let's do tax cuts. What are we going to take it from? It is raining for so many people, for homeless people, people with mental health, our schools, the fact that we cannot get workers for anything, because we're not reimbursing them enough. To say let's do tax cuts at a time when actually the median income is actually doing okay in Maine, it just doesn't make sense to me, and it's a good talking point. It's way short on specifics.
So if you look back 3 years now, we sprayed money all over the state from Washington to address many of these things that you've just said. And what I'm hearing today is it's not enough. We need to spend more. Where is the end point?
Well, but if you go back 4 years or 5 years or 6 years, we gave a $400 million tax cut in income tax, mostly to the most wealthy people in the state under LePage. So I want to say, let's get some of that money back, right? So, yeah.
It's never enough. It's never enough.
Representative Clinton Collimore, a newly elected representative from Waldoboro area who we've talked about several weeks, who was indicted for forging names on clean elections paperwork, had his first day in court yesterday, said he is going to resign from the legislature, give back the pay he got for the time he was in office. Still, the resolution for that in court and in the legal system still hasn't happened yet. Betsy, does this settle it?
I think it should. I think, and we don't know whether he was doing it on purpose or he made a mistake or didn't have enough information. Yeah, and who knows? But yeah, I think he did the right thing. I think it's important, and I think the most important thing is we have to maintain the integrity of the system, and the parties and the political machines behind both parties need to make sure that their candidates understand this really innovative, important clean elections program that we have here in Maine.
Phil?
In a rare moment of bipartisanship, I couldn't agree more with Betsy.
And Senator Susan Collins now is officially the lead Republican. They call it the ranking member of the Senate Defense Appropriations Subcommittee. This should potentially be good for Maine's defense industries. What do we think? Is that an important move for her, or does it just enhance the status she already has, Phil?
Well, I think it enhances the status that she already has, and it's certainly reassuring to the workers in Maine who are in that industry that there's someone who's got an influence over those decisions, so it's good for the Maine workforce. But I think it's also good that Senator Collins is also going to be part of this discussion, which I assume we're going to have about who's flying over our airspace and are we safe?
Right. Yes.
Yeah, and good for her, good for Maine workers. I agree with that, but I can't even talk about this without looking at the size of our military budget. Our military budget in this country being higher than the next 10 countries combined, and it's a lot about the military-industrial complex. I know we can't get into that here, but I can't say congratulations or what a good thing without saying that's a real shift, a problem in our country and in our priorities.
Briefly, the last few weeks we've talked about this craziness with first the Chinese spy balloon, then all these others being shot down, which the last I've heard, we still don't know what those are or were. Betsy, is this much ado about nothing? Will this go away, or is this a lasting concern?
I don't think it's listen, I'm thrilled. I hope it's UFOs and they're here to save us, coming down to get us and pick out the ones that we can go and, do it better somewhere else. But in all seriousness, I think we need a better policy. We need to understand it better. I think the president said that this week, but I think it's a much ado about nothing, not about nothing, but I think we just have to be careful and do it. I don't think it should take as much time in our national conversation as it's taking.
Okay. Phil?
I see it a little differently. I had a chance to talk with Senator Collins about this, and she said that the one that we do know, which was a Chinese spy balloon, could loiter over certain areas, could pick up information that they can't from satellite. So I see that as something that is very concerning. And then the reaction to the president then going up and taking out numerous objects that turned out allegedly to be research or weather balloons, kind of went in the opposite direction.
But it's interesting that no one is yet officially saying if they know what those were. We presume that the fighter jets all have pictures and video of them from fairly close, but we still aren't getting the full detail of what those things are.
No, I caught on the news Senator John Kennedy from Louisiana after a briefing talking with reporters, and he said that he was very concerned, and he used at the end of his press conference, lock your doors at night. Well, I don't know what that means, but clearly they know something
Because the
we don't.
aliens are going to come and invite you to come with them. That's why.
If you see anybody with great big eyes, be worried.
Right. Or say, help us.
So the big political news of the week, obviously, Nikki Haley formally announcing what everybody knew was likely to happen. She is running for president. Phil, I'll start with you as a Republican, as she is. How important is her entry into the race?
Well, she certainly has the credentials. She was a governor of South Carolina. She was the ambassador to the United Nations. So she has stature in and of her experience. The question is she going to have the momentum, the energy, the resources, and the organization to really catch fire, so to speak? Because right now it's DeSantis and Trump who are the focus.
Even though DeSantis is not officially in the race.
He's not even in the race, and people are focused on
He's
it.
already ahead.
Yeah,
Well, and I think it indicates the fracture in the Republican Party, and I think a really strong move by some of the more rational, maybe, or Republicans to not let Donald Trump totally dominate this election and be the heir apparent, in a move that I think many Republicans see would be disastrous in terms of the next presidential election. So I think she got out early. I think she did that to say, oh yeah, there's a lot of us in town, not just this guy.
And it's interesting, in her video that announced this and in subsequent comments and interviews, she is making the same reference as Sarah Huckabee Sanders did in her response to the State of the Union about need a new generation of leaders.
Yeah.
And she, of course, would point to Biden, but others saying, well, Trump is just a few years younger.
Yeah.
Is that a message that's going to resonate with the Republican electorate?
I think Sarah Huckabee is absolutely correct. It is time for a new generation.
And I would say not just for the Republicans, right? I mean, how long are we going to have, old white men running the country? Like, they're not doing that great a job.
Why are you looking at me when you
I
say
didn't
that?
know. I was like,
I don't think old white men are that awful, but just speaking for myself.
Some, but the ones who seem to have risen, right? So, no, but it is time for a new generation. And, there's been a lot of, I think we need to look at what happens and where we make progress, and we need to invite and make it possible for new people to enter the scene.
Yeah. Do you agree with that, Phil?
Absolutely, yes. It's time.
But will the Republican electorate say, yeah, we've got to, because by inference you're saying no Trump?
Correct. But I think there's a lot of energy around President Trump because of the policies, and there are people who like that sort of bully approach to politics. But there's also a contingent who say, you know what, if we're going to be successful in the next election, Donald Trump being nominated is not going to attract the independents and the conservative Democrats. That's not going to happen.
Yeah. Another terrible mass shooting this week. And Betsy, I'll start with you on this. We keep saying this. The instant reaction is we have to do something about guns. Whether that would or would not have changed anything with this, who knows? He has already been convicted of a gun-related crime.
Yeah, but we know that in other countries it does make a big difference. And shame on us. There's been more mass shootings than there have been days in the calendar so far this year. Mm-hmm. And at some point, we're going to reach a tipping point that doesn't say we're going to take everyone's guns away, but says if we don't start talking and doing regulations about gun safety, this is going to happen again. And I think one of the shocking things about this incident is how little media attention, how little, it's like, oh, another mass shooting. Okay, well, bloop, here's the 10-second thing on the screen. And then we don't think about it. We don't talk about it anymore. And 10 and 15 years ago, this would have been.
And we always end up talking about guns, and nothing changed with that, but do we talk about other causes, other aspects of this?
I think there's a big conversation about the public health aspect of this, which includes mental health. It includes prevention. It includes, what gets people to the, we can look at the profile of some of these mass shooters, and there's threads there that we can take care of, or we can start to look at in a better way. And I think those conversations are starting to happen. They're way too slow, but the guns are a huge part of it.
Yeah. Phil, go ahead.
Well, I was just going to respond that I think there's some uniquenesses to this situation. Any gun violence like that is unacceptable. Whether you're a sportsman or you're anti-guns, this is unacceptable. In this instance, the person was using a pistol, not some menacing-looking rifle.
Yep.
And under existing law, he shouldn't have been able to buy the gun in the first place.
So what do we do, if anything? What is the role of government in this?
Well, I think it's time for us to have a fresh look at how do you get access to a gun, and where do they line up against existing state and federal laws, and make sure that we are enforcing those laws, and we're not.
Can those discussions happen?
I don't know, it makes it almost impossible. In Maine, it's really hard to have those discussions because the minute you say anything to say, let's talk about enforcing the current laws even, right? It's like, oh no, you're anti-gun, you'll never get reelected, can't have that conversation. So it's not about taking people's guns away, it's about keeping them safe, it's about background checks, it's about safe storage, it's about all of those things, and those conversations are difficult to have, but with every one of these incidents, it makes it a little bit more urgent and maybe a little bit easier.
You won't hear a responsible gun owner in Maine say we shouldn't enforce or discuss gun laws.
Yeah, absolutely.
They want those laws enforced.
So it's not the gun owners, it's the politicians.
You said it.
There we
No,
go.
100%.
Okay, winners and losers this week. Betsy, you first.
Well, so my loser, as apropos of our last conversation, is the shooting in Michigan, and I think our failure to ban assault weapons, even though this was done with a pistol. We know most of them are done with assault weapons, and I think the failure of politicians to be willing to talk about that and actually take action. That's my loser of the week. And the winner of my week, changing things completely, is the Stellar Sea Eagle here in Maine, which is here from Japan, from the ice tundra of Japan. And if you haven't seen it, this bird has an 8-foot wingspan sitting next to a bald eagle. A bald eagle looks like a pigeon, and it is astonishing, and we are so blessed to have this amazing creature of nature that's so close to home.
There you go.
Well, that's tough to follow up on. My loser of the week is for all of the bravado coming out of the Biden administration over environmental responsibility. For their response in Palestine, Ohio, fell way short of the mark. The winner of the week, in my view, is the Maine Principals Association. For decades now, February vacation is basketball tournament week, and it's a delight for all Mainers, and congratulations
And if you
to
could
the
get out
MPA.
to one of those venues, Bangor, Augusta, Portland, to see one of these games, try to do it. 'Cause
It'll fill your soul.
Will absolutely. Thank you both very much. Thanks for being with us. News Center Maine continues right after this.